sometimes when we have a flight. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my live stream. I thank you very much for those of you who have received my notice and are here. I appreciate very much. My name is Josephine. For those of you who are new here, I'm Kenyan. I live in Kenya, and I'm a grandmother and mother and sister and friend. And I've now become a YouTuber recently. I'm retired and I'm right now staying with a child in my house, my nephew. And yes, I welcome you to my vlog. The live stream vlogs I'm doing as an attempt to get myself into getting more subscribers, and also because I'm not able to sometimes do more than one video and in between doing videos, because I still have time in between breaks of my work, I decided then I can do a video, tell you a bit more about myself, maybe endear you also to become subscribers of this channel, to know about me, to know about my country, to know about places I visited, things I see, what I view about different things, and so on. So if you're new here, please press the like and subscribe button. When you press the like, you help YouTube, something called the algorithm, which is the automated system of YouTube, to know who you are and then see what other videos you also watch, see who your friends are on YouTube, and then refer my video to more people. So I welcome you. I welcome the person who's come in and I appreciate it. Yes, my name is Josephine, and I'll be turning 60 in March, in next month. Actually, it's just several days to come. It's about 20 something days, not quite 30 days, and I appreciate it very much. Baby has just slept. For those of you who've been watching my videos, you know that I'm staying with a toddler, and he gets busy, and he can speak. So he'll normally be telling me what he wants to do. He wants to play. He wants my attention, and it's very difficult. And I always tell you that when I have a baby in the house, whenever I'm staying with a baby, whether it's my grandchild, it's another child who's in the family, or like in this case, the child of somebody in my family, I'll always give priority to the child's need over my need to vlog and to present myself online. So I welcome you to the vlog. It's now 11:37 in Nairobi in Kenya. I live in a place called Ruai. It's usually very sunny. Even now it's rainy season, but the sun is out. The sun is up and shining. And how nice. I appreciate that so much. It gets so lovely when it's like this. And I'm very glad that I stay in a warm place. It's very important when you're an older person and you're living in a warm place, because cold gets to us so much. It gets to us, and that becomes something else, because you can get sick so easily. You can you can get unwell, and if you have arthritis, as many older people do, they have arthritis, then it gets very difficult for you to cope, to survive, and everything else. So I'm very glad that I live here, and I appreciate it so much that I live in a warm place and not in a cold place. I've lived in places that were cold, and I know how that affected me. I mean, whenever I stayed in a place, even if it was just for a short while, but whenever I stayed in a place that was cold, then I got sick. I got unwell very easily. And I also suffered from osteoarthritis, which is a form of arthritis also. And I, it's not something that you like very much when it happens. You don't like it when it happens to you. So I'm very glad that I stay where I am. It's very nice. It's very warm. Even now when it's rainy, it's still very warm, and I appreciate the warmth. It's also a very good climate for the elderly, if you have elderly relatives. And this area, it's not just particularly in Ruai, but Ruai, Joska, Kamulu, all the way around probably to Tala, because we are on a flat zone where the winds pass by. And then as you get on to Nairobi, the altitude is higher and it becomes cooler. In fact, it gets not just cooler, but it gets much, much more rainy. The weather is different, because I think it's also the altitude. apart from the altitude, it's also that we are in the plains and we are next to the semi-arid regions. Yeah, so I appreciate this so much, staying in this place. So I welcome you to my vlog. I'm at 162 viewers. I'm aiming to get to 1,000 subscribers. When you get to 1,000 subscribers, then you're able to get monetized in YouTube. And getting monetized in YouTube is a very important step. Is a very important step because it allows you now to earn a monthly income through just not doing anything much but posting videos about your lifestyle. If it's about your lifestyle, if it's about your work, whatever it is about, just being online, then now ensures that as long as you're posting videos, as long as you're telling your story, as long as you're making whatever kind of creation it is, then in that case you're getting money, you're getting an income, because you get income from different sources. You'll get income for the number of likes you get. You're going to get income for the number of subscribers you have. You're going to get income for the number of people who probably are sharing your videos. They're just different ways that you're going to get income, and it's going to come on point every 22nd of the month into your account. And if you can earn money from telling your story, why not? You know, we Africans are natural storytellers. Storytelling uh, is a very basic point of our culture and our traditions. Through storytelling, we were able to tell about the lineages of family. Through storytelling, we were able to tell about our customs. Through storytelling, children were able to be told about age appropriate behaviors. If it was the girls, they had storytelling from their aunties, from their elder sisters, from their grandmothers, and that directly taught them how to behave in society. If it was the boys, they had storytelling from their elder brothers, from their fathers, from their grandfathers, and then through that, they were able to learn about whether it was hunting, whether it was building of homes, whether it was how to behave how to behave with neighboring clans, how to how to process activities of what maybe if it was about marriage. And I mean, so many things got told. You know, people picked from the stories they had, from the storytelling by the elders. Then people learnt about what was acceptable and what was not acceptable in society. And so storytelling is a very integral part of Africa. And through storytelling also, we have now we won't call it storytelling, but we'll call the sit down sessions anything else. We'll call them educative forums, we'll call them discussion forums, we'll call them different things, but they'll basically be storytelling, because it is through storytelling that we Africans know how to transfer information and acquire information. And so, yes, as an African, part of the thing that I'd like to promote in this channel, of course, is the African culture, our African traditions and beliefs and cultures. And as time has passed, and as we develop more into talking more, and because we are now becoming more and more a global village, we are learning that some of the cultural norms, some of the traditions we have been harmful, and how do we correct them, or how do we change them to be less harmful, or to remove the harm completely from where they are. Today I'd also like to tell you about places I've been, places I've lived in. I'm a very I'm a person who moves a lot, who has moved a lot rather. Now I don't move a lot. Now I'm very static in staying here, but in my life I've moved a lot. I was born in Machakos. That is a small city in Kenya. Machakos City. Its proximity to Nairobi is very close. So in about an hour, arriving at home. I'm hearing a hooting. I don't know whether it's in, and the dog is barking. You'll give me a minute. No, 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 no. It's not here. They'd knock. Sorry, I thought it was somebody at the gate. Yeah, so I was born in Machakos and then grew up in Nairobi. I lived in Nairobi most of my youthful life. We had visits, occasional visits during holidays to Machakos. And I went to schools in Nairobi. I went to Langata West, then I went to Nairobi Girls. And then for high school, I went to Kapkenda Girls in Eldoret. And coincidentally, or just by chance, because I went to Kapkenda Girls, that's in around Chepkorio, we were just at the edge of the Kerio Valley. Oh, such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. Overlooking the valley into Bomet, I think. I think it's via Bomet that is in the border. And I schooled there for 2 years and I loved the place. And then coincidentally, that's what I'm talking about, that it's a coincidence. I came back again to live in Elgon View for about 2 years. My husband then, because he's now passed away, rest his soul in peace, Julius Essendi. He worked with African Tours and Hotels, and that's one thing I'm talking about in the video that I'm shooting for today. That is, it is very sad that the national hotel chain, African Tours and Hotels, was privatized. That was a very big loss to the country. It would have helped a lot of children, millions of children, of people over the years, if you count cumulative years, would have gotten jobs, would have had careers, stable careers, because African Tours and Hotels did so much justice to a lot of people who are in the hotel industry. And the tourism sector has picked up much, much more in this day and age. So how many more of our children who are in the hotel industry would have had stints of bypassing through the chain of hotels owned by the country? It would have given them opportunity, because the way government works, or the way it used to work, now there's so much corruption that some of these values that were useful and that were practiced back then were so great. The way it worked then, because I know now it doesn't work like that. Now you use money and you can stay in one place for years for convenience, which is just a product of corruption. But back then, if you worked for government, you could be transferred to work anywhere. Now we have what we call the counties. Back then we had provinces, and there were, I think, 8 provinces in Kenya. And so you could be posted by government. If you worked for government, you could be posted to work anywhere. You could work in Machakos, you could work in northeastern, you could work in central, you could work in western, you could work in coast region. And it was very good for workers, because that also got you to travel with your families. And that's why, and then tribalism was at a lower level then, because we were Kenyans. That also brought people very much together, because you'd find this Luo man who was working in coast, and this Meru person who was working in northeastern, and this Masai who had been posted to work in western. And it did not matter where you came from, but if you were working for government, at least in the stint of your lifetime of work, if you were working for, let's say, 40 years or to 50 years, whatever the time span you are working for, you might work in 3 different provinces. And that meant that your entire family was in 3 different provinces within a span of 20 years. And that was so good, because children went to different schools, people learned different languages. And it was easy, because it was also good, because then salaries did not have the common that has become very Kenyan, the bad common that has become very ordinary in Kenya, that there are unpaid salaries, unpaid wages for persons working within government. That is something I never had in my childhood from the elders that were in the family and around us who worked for government. If anything, the most stable jobs were those with government, and times have changed anyway. And so that was so good. So if we had still the African Tours and Hotels, that would mean that young people in the country who are working for the hotel system within the tourism sector would be having such a big opportunity to travel. One time they might be in county 001, the next they'd be able to move, because I know as development has come, then that means that the chain of hotels would be in every single county. And can you imagine having the probability, the ability? And because things are much more dynamic now, there's a very high possibility that people would be working in as many as 7 counties in the lifetime of their work within the organization. And it would also help because it would be an additional factor helping even local tourism for people to be able to travel to different counties and have a hotel chain that probably has what rates that are more affordable, being that it is a government chain. But that again is the sadness of privatization. Privatization, in my opinion, did not work well. It was a loss for government because we can see how KQ went. I mean, I remember Kenya Airways was the pride of Africa. Now I don't know how much it can boast of being the pride of Africa, when every once in a while we are hearing about major losses. We are hearing about mass corruption that has lost the corporation into the millions. When we are hearing about workers' strike every now and then. I mean, something as crucial as an airline business, having workers striking over wages, salaries, and wages, it's a crying shame. It's a crying shame. I'm proud of my country, but it's good to call out what is wrong, and what isn't. Yes, so I schooled in Eldoret, Kapkenda Girls, my alumni. It was Kapkenda was starting the first art stream. It had been a sciences only high school before that, but then now it started the art stream. So we were the pioneers for the art stream, and we were under Miss Ank de Blanc. God bless her wherever she is. If she's if, I don't know whether she's still alive, but bless her soul, she was a very loving soul. And I liked the school. It was a total change from where I had been in Nairobi Girls, which was a very posh high school in the midst of the capital city. And now I went to somewhere where in Nairobi Girls we had hot showers. In Kapkenda Girls, you went to the river and fetched water, or went to the tap on absolutely cold mornings, and then fetched your water and then came and bathed in the rooms were like 10 by 20, and then you just went there with your basin and had a shower among everybody else. And I had never been naked in the presence of other girls as a teenager, not even my own sisters. I mean, at home we had the luxury of a shower. So a culture shock, one on one. I was like, what? And if you did not want to have to go and fetch water, because normally there'd be a queue, there'd be a rush for people getting water in the morning. And of course, it's always colder in the morning. You fetched water in your basin and then kept it under your bed. And let me tell you, Kapkenda was cold. It was cold. So imagine the water that has stood still in your basin, then going into that cold room to shower in the morning. And the goodness is that it's not as cold as you'd think. I think it was just the mentality I had because I came from so much luxury. But when you got into the bathroom, which was crowded with like 20, 30 girls, it was warm because of all the warmth of these bodies being cleaned up. And then it's indoor. I mean, when humans have what have a lot of heat emanating from their bodies naturally, and so all these people scrubbing up and everything, you'd just be seeing steam rising, and nobody had hot water. Oh my goodness. And I got used to it, of course, in a short while. And then I came from a diet where we were near the president's home, not Kabarak, sorry, State House, Nairobi. So Nairobi Girls is situated not very far from State House. And then the then president, Honorable His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi, was a frequent visitor to our school. I mean, when he took his daily walks, he walked past our school, and he loved us girls. And yeah, he also loved the administration. And that's not a story that I'm going to talk about here, with all due respect to his family. But yes, we got special favors because of our wonderful headmistress, Mrs. Wamwangi. And so we got treats. And I remember one of the treats that I loved the most, which the president would give us, was that we'd have egg curry. When he left money, we'd have egg curry. And I loved that so much. I loved that so much. And then I went to Kapkenda. And Kapkenda, it was ugali and cabbage, chunks of cabbage. Like really, I think the cook would be like cutting 7 times every cabbage and throwing it aside. Okay, it's a joke, it wasn't 7 times, but there were really chunks of cabbage and then a lot of watery soup. I don't even remember seeing onions in those things. I'm sure they fried them, but me, I never remember seeing any onions. But I'm a cabbage lover. So I never had a problem in secondary school with and high school with eating cabbage. Even if we had it every day, I never have had a problem. And it didn't matter how it was cooked because I loved cabbage. And I still do love cabbage. Thank you very much, the Christian Inclusive Ministry. I appreciate very much. Thank you and welcome. So I stayed in Kapkenda Girls, and in Kapkenda Girls, when we went, the teachers would come with the shirts open down to, yeah, there were chunks. The teachers would come in with their shirts open to the waist, okay, not to the waist, but showing a lot of their chest, and they'd be, showing the hairs on their chest. I think it was a machismo kind of thing. And then we had teachers who had relationship with girls. The school I came from, Nairobi Girls, I mean, discipline was discipline. We were in the central district, and we knew about teacher-student behavior. It was supposed to be strictly teacher-student behavior relationship. You only reached out to the teachers concerning tuition and concerning school matters. And then here I come and find that girls do go to the teachers' dormitories, they work for them, they sleep with them, and I think these teachers were probably trying to attract other girls or something. And myself and one other person, I'm going to name her here, Dorcas, excuse me, Dorcas Angia. Dorcas came from Nangina Girls. Nangina is also a very good school. It was actually one of my choices, but I didn't get called. And I've never stopped getting angry about that. I wanted to go either to Nangina Girls or Bunyore Girls, schools in Western. I've had and you see also because my grandfather, I lived partially with my grandparents and then started living with my grandmother later on because she had me when she was young. And so we had lived different places, and I just admired the fact that there was Western. I just liked it, and I thought I wanted to go to those schools because these were the national schools that had a lot of grace and a lot of favor, and I had had good stories about them. And so I was so angry when I did not get called either to Bunyore Girls or schools in Western. And so my friend was also from that school. And so we were the posh girls in the school because we came from posh schools. And so we sat down and we educated the rest of the girls and told them, listen, this is wrong. Male teachers should not come here. First of all, they come to class late. They should not come late, whether male or female. Second, they should do the full lesson with us. What we knew from the better schools that we had come from. And they should never ever come underdressed or badly dressed because they'd come in sandals sometimes, or they just come, they'd be dressed unofficially. And so we staged a strike. And what we did, and I remember we had our literature teacher, he was fantastic in his work, but he personalized issues so much. And thinking back in retrospect, I think because he was Ugandan, and at that time we had a lot of refugees in Kenya, and he was a professional. And so he must have had a lot of hang up of being a displaced person. I didn't know that. I was a teenager that was also going through my issues as a teenage girl and in a new environment. And he was a fantastic teacher. I give it all to him, Mr. Ruge. No, he was not called Mr. Ruge. What he had a long, because I know he was a Mnyankole, very, was he Rwandese or a Mnyankole? He was a Mnyankole or he was Rwandese, but he had I'll remember his name sometime, but I can't remember it. And so what we did was we wrote down our grievances on the desks and on the blackboard. We wrote down everything that we felt was wrong. And we said, whenever any teacher came to the class, we'd keep quiet. We'd just keep quiet and let them read what was written. I mean, let it speak for itself. And so the first teacher came, then went and called the second teacher, then went and called the third teacher. And we were just silent. We were not doing anything. We were not beating the desks and we were not doing what. We just sat. And I think they could not imagine that we could dare do this. And so they went to the headmistress, Miss Ank de Blanc. She was a huge Dutch woman, very handsome. Can you call a woman handsome? I can say she was handsome. She was very beautiful and handsome at the same time. She'd never been married, to the best of my knowledge. She'd never had children, but she was very straightforward, as the Dutch are. And she was a disciplinarian, but very understanding. And she knew the place we stayed in. This was Kalenjin land, in the heartland of Kalenjin land. And a lot of people in that place were not very exposed. I mean, one thing I knew about the people in Kaptagat, in Chepkorio, in in that area that we were in, was that they had been born there, and this was for generations of for different generations, for the young ones, for the older ones, for the aged. They were born there, went to school there, lived there, went to the universities there. I mean, their scope was so limited, and for many years, I think I'm not wrong in saying this, people in that land just knew Eldoret as their biggest city. I mean, coming to Nairobi was not a common given for them, except the few who worked in government and other organizations. So their views about life, about the world, were very limited, very, very limited. Though they had the presidency in their land, I can say there was a lot of ignorance. And so for us youngies to come out, organize for a strike, and then go to that extent was totally unacceptable. And we stood our ground, and there was no learning that day, and the teachers were in a huff, and they said there was no learning. Oh, and we went crazy about it, dancing, singing. And then, of course, an investigation was done, and the two ringleaders were found to be Dorcas and Josephine. And I think I was the entertainment prefect, and Dorcas was deputy head girl or something. And so we were given a punishment to uproot a tree stump. I don't know whether I've ever told this story before, but a tree stump. And when I talk about a tree stump, I mean a tree this big. And Kapkenda is set on going along the Chepkorio Hill, but before you get to the top of the hill, so it's on a flat ground, but there's a river that is right next. Actually, I think it's in the compound of the school. Yes, we have the farmland on one side, and then at the back of the school, and then it goes into the river. And so this tree we were uprooting was behind the administration block. I haven't been to the school now. I saw it so glitzy, it's been made up and done up and everything. But at that time, for people who know Kapkenda girls, the school just reached where the administration was. That was the fence along that area and the back of the kitchen. And so we were told to uproot the tree stump as a punishment. We didn't get sent home, but we were told to ask our parents to come. Well, me, I had a supporting mother, so I didn't mind that. Dorcas says, Father, rest his soul in peace. He was such a darling, Mr. Angia. But the mom came, rest her soul also in peace. And our parents were with us so much. Of course, they told us off a bit, but they knew we had our rights. We had educated parents also, which was a plus. And so they came and sorted and went back. But we had pocket money. We had pocket money, and we were smart girls. We came from good schools and we had good education, and we were well exposed. So what we did was, there was also a lot of tribalistic mamas in the school a lot, and we didn't come from favored tribes. So what we did was that one of the workers who was sidelined by the rest of the many workers. Christian like me, inclusive ministry. I actually, his name is something. He's saying that Rutakabasirwa Mungu. Yeah, their names are always that long. I've lived in Uganda for 11 years. Trust me when I say that. I know their names. And actually, his name started with R also. I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember it. It was a long name. But thank you. Yeah, it was something like that. And so what we did was that this Luya worker, and Dorcas is also Luya. This Luya worker was our friend. I mean, he understood that we had, and also some of the girls from within Kerio, within the locality, were not in our favor. They didn't like us. They didn't like that we were so brash, we were so loud, we knew so much, we knew the latest music, we could sing songs, we could dance, we could argue with teachers, we'd face teachers and tell them, no, that's not right, no, you came late, no, you're not supposed, and they didn't like it that we could speak fluent English and all that. And we were like, we came from schools where it was even nothing. You are not even the best English speaker. You are not even the smartest person. You are not even from the richest home. I mean, you are just another ordinary person. And then we come here where people think that you're feeling too entitled just because you know your rights. And so this worker told us, he'd even had mamas from the other workers that, these girls who come from Nairobi, that's what they called us, the girls who come from Nairobi, because we lived in Nairobi. And he was a real Luyas, Luyas. Amejenga vizuri, amekula vizuri, and he was the handyman. He used to look after the cows and work in the field. So we designed a plan with him. We told him, he said, you can't uproot this tree. We knew we couldn't uproot a tree, and that meant we were going to stay out of class for what, a month. So we agreed we'd be paying him, I think it was 100 shillings a day or something. We were so stupid. Or I'm sure there's an amount we put for him. And so because we are on the slope and the administration office is a bit above, slightly above us, and the last office is the headmistress's office. And the headmistress almost never came out of her office for anything. And when she came out, she'd walk, she was so outstanding. She was just a spot of white in the middle of all the black and green. So she could be spotted from so far. And she used to dress in bright colors. So we made a plan that one of us would stand at a strategic point where we could see, because she's the one who used to come and supervise. She also knew that there were um, eh, tribal mamas among the staff and among the other students, and so she also wanted to protect us. And she told us this in confidence with our mothers when they came to argue out the case. I mean, and she even said that she had just called our parents just so that she could show that there was some fairness being done, but she knew we were absolutely right. What we had talked about, in fact, it's a good thing we had assisted her to bring this out, because now she had to write a formal report to the Ministry of Education, to the local office, and alert them. And she was thankful to us. And so she even told us, and we were capable of understanding that she was doing this to protect us. At the same time, it was to protect the system and protect us from her being seen to be lenient to us, as a special favor. And so we accepted. It was a deal that the only thing we were going to do is that we were not going to get suspended, but we'd uproot uproot the tree. Oh my goodness. It was so hilarious. And how can I forget that worker's name? I'll ask Doc when I see her. And so we paid him. And so one person would stand at a spot where, if we saw her, you could quickly pretend that either you are going for a bite or you are going to the toilet, and then signal to the other person who would be near the worker, so that the worker would run off him. He knew that ground, and he could move very fast. And then he'd leave. And then the other person who was next to the tree stump would continue working, to show that the work was going on, but the other person had gone to rest. And within what? I think it was in less than, I think he also told us not to make it look too soon, so that there'd be some credibility to it. And the tree was uprooted. It was just a trunk. And I think it was uprooted, or we got the time ended of 2 weeks. Normally suspension in Kenya used to be, I don't know about now, but it's for a long time. It's been, I think, 2 weeks or something. Yeah. And the time ended, and we still had our lessons and everything. And Dorcas graduated and all, I mean, passed and went on to college. I didn't quite fail, but I didn't do well enough to be accepted into the local universities with with a full grant, which used to be the case in those days, not nowadays, when you have some people on the grant and others not on the government grant. And for me, I think the economic situation in my family did not permit for us to now go into looking for private schools. I just told my mom, no, don't bother to try looking for private college for me. If my applications to the United States, which we used to think was the best and the only place to go for education, and which was the dream of many people, and I tried many times, and yes, I'd get accepted. We didn't have the money. And my mom did try for a while through a friend in Botswana, but I was like, don't get into the hassle of looking for a college for me. I have all my siblings coming up and they also need an education. Focus on them and I'm going to work. And by very good chance also, it's Dorcas's father, rest his soul in peace, Mr. Angia, who now got me a job at the Standard newspapers, which was my first job as an accounts clerk. And I graduated on to, you know, uh, a salesperson in marketing. And that was my first and one of the best jobs I've ever had, well paying. And I stayed there for very many years, and it built me into who. Thanks to him, I became what I was in the corporate world because I had such a good grounding, and in a place where there was a lot of fairness and there was a lot of equality, and there was a lot of push to develop women to become. This was I think this was around, no, this was later after the Beijing, the Women's International Conference to give women rights and privileges at workplaces. And so I'm glad that I went through that. And yes, that was my history of being in Kapkenda. I enjoyed coming for holidays because we used to use the train. And one harrowing thing that used to happen is that when we were boarding the train now on closing days, and especially like when we finished exams and we were leaving for the last time, I don't know what used to happen with the trains those days, and because it was these old wagons, and the train would come and it had such a short, limited time for you to board, and there were people from different schools, the boys' schools, the girls' schools. So the train would even begin moving before all of you had loaded and had gotten onto the train. Can you imagine the chaos? And we still enjoyed it. I mean, young children, being young is such a joy. It's good to experience some stuff when you're young. And so sometimes what would happen is that the train would start moving. You'd hear the hooting, and it would, because the old wagons don't just start. It's not like the electric train. It starts chugging because it was using what, coal, I think. And so your box is still down. Some of your friends have entered the train. So what you're doing is that as the train is moving, you're all pushing your luggage to be received by your friends in there, and then you're going to run a lap. Oh, goodness, a lap the last several meters for you to grab onto the rail of the door handle and get inside. There were no conductors back then for making sure that everybody has onboarded onto the train before it starts moving. It was jishikilie. You or you're on your own until you enter the train. I'll check your ticket when you're inside. But we survived all that. And we give thanks because I also don't remember hearing many incidences of people dying when they were trying to board on the train. If anything, the only accidents we heard about were people being crushed by the train as it bypassed. But we give thanks and grace to God because this is what Gen Alpha. This is what we went through. It's been quite a struggle growing up. It was survival for the fittest. But I'm glad I went through all that. I mean, it's stories that, and again, as I started the channel this vlog by saying, we Africans, we educate by storytelling. We are also educated by storytelling. And these are stories that I tell my children, stories that I want to tell my grandchildren. And then it also gives the person who's listening an opportunity to compare because them, they know now what they know about trends is very organized. In fact, I don't think they've boarded the coal trains, the older ones. And I'm going to make sure one of these days that they do board some of the older trains because they're still running in different routes and just get the experience of how it feels to go on that old kind of train vis-a-vis the now this glitzy electric fast train, which is the SGR. And after I left Kapkenda, because I didn't go to university, I worked. I stayed. After I worked, when I moved out, I first moved out to a house in Athi River. At that point, Athi River had the Kenya Meat Commission, and it was a thriving business, which again got privatized. Oh goodness, privatization sucks. And so the whole of Athi River town was mainly born out of the meat industry that was Kenya Meat Commission, because there was the largest slaughterhouse, and then there were factories now spread across the country. And I think the bigger ones were in, I know they had some tanning done at Kenya Meat Commission in Athi River, but the bigger one I know about was in I think was in, and you'd always tell where the tanning factories are because of the smell. The process of tanning leather involves a lot of smell. First of all, the skin on the hides, and then when the skins are being dried, because this is carcass from, I mean, this is hide from should I call it animal carcass? Correct me if I shouldn't. And so the meat factory then was producing canned meat, I think, for the military and also for export. And then there was local supply meat. And meat, I ate. I ate meat because I stayed in Athi River. I ate meat variously and commonly and frequently. If you bought from the factory, it was at throwaway price. And the human resource manager then was a friend of mine. And whenever we met, he'd be like, "Would you like a kilo?" No, 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 not it was not the human resource manager. I had friends in there, and they had a butchery, I think, outside. But everywhere that meat was sold around Athi River was cheap. And then I lived in one of the houses. And then this is another thing that is good about government corporations, and why I think that the sellout into privatization was a loss. All government workers, if I'm not wrong, most or all were entitled to government housing. And so almost every corporation, thank you very much. Now I see meat, yeah, once in a while. And when I get it, it's by I'll feast on it, but I rarely do. And even I personally now do not buy meat by choice very frequently. If I buy meat very frequently, it's going to be once every 2 weeks, and I don't feel I'm losing out on anything. I've adapted more of soy meat, and I keep it like that, and I'm very, very healthy doing vegetables and meat once in a while. And I'll buy soup. I buy soup frequently. Yeah. Plus this one is also in shortage. So yeah, sometimes this one dictates the diet. So what happened was I lived in Athi River, and I used to commute the Kenya bus service, which was then the blue buses, which would beat corners, and then you go like this, and then it beats another corner, and you do like this. I don't know how the chassis of those buses were, that they never used to fall, and they'd be packed, because right back then we didn't have regulations for what capacity buses should have. I think that was just something of a decoration, because we didn't even know that vehicles had um capacity limits, because you just thought that if there's space in a vehicle, a commercial vehicle, it should be filled. That's why in the box matatus, the ones that cops now use, the Marias, you'd find like 15 to 18 people. That thing is supposed to be for 8 people. Buses would have capacity of up to 60. I think if the capacity of sitting was 40, you'd find sometimes 70 people in that bus, because there'd be people standing in front of your legs, for those of you who are seated, and then the whole aisle would have people chest to chest and back to, and these buses would go at speeds and take corners, especially that roundabout of City Stadium. I remember that always I used to have my heart in my mouth, because when it took the corner, that's a roundabout, so it has to take a long curve, and then like really bend on the seat, and the bus would be veering so much on the edge, and God has protected us. We need to be thankful to God and go on our knees every day for the surviving that we did. Anyway, back to Athi River. I used to commute to Athi River, and what chased me from Athi River was they had beautiful houses, and that's why I'm saying that the government corporations were a very big plus. I remember my in-laws lived in the KRA houses, units that are in South Sea. And I went into those houses and I was like, my goodness, these houses are almost as big as the Ngei two houses. And these are houses in the range of the millions. And anywhere you went in the country, okay, granted, some houses were not as big. Even the ones in Athi River were a living room and one bedroom, and then there were different units. There were one bedroom units and two bedroom units. There were units that had electricity, and because they were structured for different statuses of workers. And I think the ones that I rented out, because what most government corporations did, I think, was that if there was not enough capacity of workers to live in the homes, they'd rent them, but at very subsidized rates. And I was paying, I think I must have been paying 1,500 shillings, something very cheap. And then it had a kitchenette inside, and it had the bathroom inside. And then the toilet was adjacent to the house, but it was part of, because it was a standalone unit, then another standalone unit, set on a ground of about 40 by, probably 40 by 40, which is a very big space. And it was that unit on itself, and then the next unit on itself. And I was like, what a deal! What a deal! And so I lived there for a few years, and then until now I met my husband, the late Julie, and I liked it so much. And you can imagine, for people who work for government, if you're staying 10 years without paying rent and you have the perks that you're getting at work, it was so lovely. I really, really wish government would reconsider and even start giving houses. I mean, now the system is totally different, but having houses for government workers was a very big plus. That was a very, very big plus. Now we have mortgage arrangements and everything, and so be it. Then I came there and lived in Nairobi, and I've never loved Nairobi. I live in Nairobi, yes, but the hustle and bustle of Nairobi is so tiring. It is so taxing on the soul, on the person, that it's not the best place that I can claim to have lived in. It isn't. Then I did a very brief stint in towards Kino, I think, or Kikuyu, not quite Kikuyu, but Dagoreti. I think it's now known as Kino, but I know where I lived was Dagoreti, but a bit, or parts of Kawangware, maybe bordering Kino. I lived there for a short stint, and then now I moved and went and I lived in Kisumu. Now, in my marriage life, we lived in Kisumu. I was still working for the Standard. And then when I started raising a family, I could no longer work. And then I stopped working with the Standard newspapers. And I had now become a freelance salesperson. And then went and lived in Eldoret. That's when we lived in, what is it called again? Elgon View Estate. It was very lovely. I enjoyed living in Eldoret with all my heart. All my heart. It was a giganomous house, as I like to call them. It was a one, two, three, I think it was a four-bedroomed house with a huge living room that had a wooden panel flooring and a massive kitchen and a foyer that had that where we put a bed, and I'd sleep there sometimes with a child if it was in the afternoon. That's where I had my firstborn. And then it was a lovely house, and then it had a servant quarter, and it was set on about 2 acres of land, and we were there alone. But I loved that house. I loved, 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 loved that place. And we moved from there and came to Nairobi because this was a hotelier. And like I say, you see, this movement that we were making, it was all part of work. He was being transferred to different hotels, and they were offering, as a manager, we were being offered accommodation. And we came to Nairobi, and that was at the Pan Afric, which was again owned by African Tours and Hotels. And we stayed in the apartments. And at that point is when I decided that no, 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 we cannot keep on being housed by the government. We are a growing couple, and we have a family now, a growing family, and it's a high time we stopped enjoying this park and moved into now owning our own property, bits of property. I mean, have your own furniture, because when the government gave you the house, it came fully furnished. And so this, in a way, can restrict growth if you're a forward thinking person. And for me, the luxuries were not luxuries because we did not own anything. And what I wanted was, I had tried selling the idea of we can start buying our own furniture. But everywhere we went, there was furniture. the house was fully furnished. So I said, no, 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 it would be better if we rented. And because I was working and independent, I quickly set up and got a place to rent that was not very far from his workplace or my own workplace. By then, I was working for Diners Club Africa, and I was working for the executive magazine section of it. And so we started life now in living our own homes, and I can say that I've never looked back. And from there now, my aspiration that is that we should build at home, but we got into disagreement, and some relationships work, some don't. And so not very, very long after that, we separated ways, and I went with the children. And I've never looked back since. I'm very thankful that now I have my own home here in Ruai. But after we separated, I did still live in Nairobi. And I think I went back to my mother's home, and my mother played a very big integral part in convincing me that there's life after separation, and that your own peace of mind matters because you have children growing up. And you should stop thinking about yourself and be the second person, and put your children forward, and then you'll have a focus. Because if you concentrate on yourself, it's just going to be about emotions, and emotions are neither here nor there. Emotions do not help you in moving. And so she told me, be very focused in what you're doing. Your children need an education, you need a life, and you need work, and you need to invest for the future. And well guided, I went on, and I've never looked back, and I have no regrets. And I can say that I owe so much to my mother. Rest her soul in peace. I mean, mom made me into what I am. I can't say she hardened me, but she put some common sense in my head. Because, when you're young and you get into a painful experience like a broken relationship, when you have wild ideas about love, and you focus and you invest so much into that. And so if you don't have someone to quickly put you into line and tell you that emotions have a place within your life, you might get lost. And that's how people sometimes get into a broken relationship, and it affects their life, and they get into making blunders for the rest of their life, and they can't survive because of a broken relationship. Because brokenheartedness is also part of what we are now discussing in this day and age about mental health issues. It's nothing to scoff about. And so I had someone to guide me through the process, that maybe it was meant to be like this. It's very unfortunate, but focus on what is also very important around you. You have family support, you have children. And so I went on, and that's when I later on met somebody else for a while. It didn't work, and then I focused on my work and went to Uganda. And oh my goodness, Uganda, I thank you, Uganda. I lived in Uganda for 12 years. I went first for a stint, I think, for a year, and then I brought in the children. And Uganda shaped us in so many good ways. I do not think we would be what we are as a family if we didn't have Uganda, the stint of living in Uganda. That was so beautiful. Oh, Uganda was nice. It was not the food, it was not the houses, it was not the people, it was everything together. And then we got lucky to have free. Nyo, 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 wulira, wulira. Turao. Mm. So we lived in Uganda. The children, the older children had started school in Kenya, and then they went and just flowed into Uganda very easily. I first started by putting them in private school very near where we were, and then free education was brought in by, was it Bill Clinton? I think so. And once free education was brought in, I automatically moved them to public school, and then they went to Nakasero primary. And it was living in Uganda is one of the best things that happened to me. The loves I had there, because I had love in Uganda, not always, not just with Ugandans. I also met a wonderful person of another nationality for a while. But the people of Uganda embraced us. Uganda embraced us like another mother from another land, and held us kindly and lovingly, and groomed us into good people, and showed us love everywhere we went, and showed us kindness, and we reciprocated it as much as possible. And Uganda is very much a second home for my children, and they visit it more regularly than I do now. I mean, I do not have as much capacity as they do, but I still have friends who are brothers for life, who are sisters for life, because of that 12 years that we lived together. People who became my family. When my family was away, I never got homesick in Uganda, not for a single day. And that's how much respect I have for Ugandans. And so when Ugandans cry, I cry with Ugandans, because I have sisters and brothers there, because I have family there. It is my second home in so many ways and always will be. I might go and live somewhere else and make it my second home, but that will always become my third home after Kenya. Uganda will remain our second home. And for very many years when I was in Uganda, before I left, I tried to buy land. I tried everything possible so that I could stay on in Uganda and not come and not relocate to Kenya. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out because there were simmering murmurs of disstability between the two countries, of war, and then there was a lot of upheaval going on in Kenya, political upheaval, and home calls all the time. And when push came to shove and things were no longer comfortable, and then I could not get a work permit. And for me, I did not want a work permit. I wanted citizenship. I wanted to live there. I almost got married in Uganda. That's a story of another day. But I have all praise and love and thankfulness and gratitude for Uganda. Uganda is still my second home, and I appreciate you all so much. When I meet Ugandans, I feel like I've met a child of mine, or I've met a sister, or I've met a brother, or I've met an auntie, or I've met an uncle. Yes, I appreciate it so much. So time has just moved, and thank you so much, the Christian Inclusive Ministry. Thank you, thank you, thank you for staying on and showing me so much love and support. Yes, it's almost coming to that time when I'm going to run. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to visit Uganda again this year, particularly this year. Mo, hi. Yeah, there are people that I must go and see, and there are places that I must go and see. Where did I live in Uganda? We stayed in Bweogerere. We stayed in Muyanga. We stayed in. I always forget what that place is called. It's as you're going to Nakulabi, and I don't know why I always forget where that place is, but it's the first place we stayed in, and we loved all the places. We were neighbors of Jose Chameleon, and we had very wonderful times. We were also neighbors with what's her name? There was a German who owned a bar in not in Muyanga, in Kabalagala, at the upper end of Kabalagala, and his wife. And oh my goodness, I miss you both. Wherever you are, wherever in the world you are, I hope you're fine. Njakugamba, just wait. The stories will come. The stories will come. No, the wedding didn't happen, and it won't happen. By God's grace, it will happen with somebody else. That one was not written in my book of life that this is the person you will marry. But we came just this close. But that is a life, that is a love that I'll hold dear to my heart forever. And the children, wherever you all are, I wish you all goodness and I wish you all luck. I haven't heard about dad. I don't know how he is, and I cannot reach him. But all of you, I wish you luck. I wish you well wherever you are. I don't need to mention your names. I don't need to say anything. But I'm wishing you love and I'm wishing you happiness. I know you older girls got married. Of course, I've been following you up on the news. And congratulations on your families. Congratulations on the work you're doing. I read about you online and I appreciate it. And you showed me love also when I was with your father. So I appreciate it so much. And all your uncles and aunties and cousins, those that I interacted with in the brief period I was with your dad. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was so beautiful going to Western Kenya. I remember the time we went for the wedding. That was so, so fabulous. And the visits we had to your house, that was so, so, so lovely. And of course, the dances in parliament. Woo! Ugandans are very good party goers and party and merrymakers. So I had fun. But except for the people who know, that's not something I'm going to talk about. Yeah, but those who know. And so I enjoyed, that was a love I enjoyed. And that is a country that I loved and enjoyed and still hold dear to me. And there's a spot I used to go to, the pub. For those of you who remember the pub, I don't know whether it's still open. What was the road called? Uh, no, not I can't remember but the pub. There was only one, the pub. Yeah, we used to go to the pub so much. And yeah, yes, I was a drinker. For those of you who do not know, I was a drinker, and I was a regular drinker, not those ones you say occasional, only at parties. No, I was a regular drinker. Like, I left work and went for a drink with friends and then went home. That was my regular. But that was a life I lived back then, and it was important, and it played its part, and I have absolutely nothing to regret about it. You grow only once, and that was a growth part of mine. So I've made an hour. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I've told you where I lived, where I went. I hope in one way you see how it weaves into my stories of my life right now. When you look at my travel playlist, when you look at my playlist of my different opinion, when you look at watch my different playlists, and you'll see in what I talk about and what I the stories I tell, or the opinions I give, a lot of it is shaped by all these places that I lived in, all these experiences that I lived in. And like I've told you, I'm hoping that it will assist you as you subscribe to my channel, to know exactly who Josephine is, who Wandia is, the true self of me, in the most raw and uncut fashion. I'm very appreciative for all of you who've sat down to watch this. I appreciate it. I'm going to now work on the video that I'm supposed to produce today. Luckily, the boy hasn't slept. I approximated very well. I know when he takes the nap, it's going to be about an hour and a half. And by the time he wakes up, because he had fed, I can give him full attention, because he gets very irritable immediately he wakes up, because he wants a lot of attention. So I'll be free for that. So until tomorrow, either same time or in the evening, and I'm getting better at it, and timing him, and also coordinating with the work that I have to do in the house. So hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to give a notice of as long as half an hour or 20 minutes. And one thing that I was unable to do was unable to send the alert that I'm going live to all my WhatsApp contacts. I have a problem with the phone I'm using. My own phone got spoiled, and I don't quite know how to work it out on the laptop. But it's coming. Everything is one lesson at a time. So from wherever it is you're watching, may God bless you and guide you and greatly protect you. May He meet you at your point of need. May the heavens grace you with favor in all that you're doing. If you're going through a hard time, if you're going through a difficult time, if you're facing challenges, remember all this shall come to pass. But keep your faith high, keep your hopes high. Our good Lord wants us to hold our heads high and not to walk with our heads bent, either in shame or in defeat or in failure, to be able to believe that we can do something. Have confidence. And so from sunny Ruai, which is not so sunny today, it's very dark and cloudy, in Nairobi of magical Kenya, I say kwaheri sana, and God bless you. Please remember to press the like and subscribe button. Until later and next time, thank you and God bless you.